toxic politics, and even street protests, and the role social media plays. Ev Williams is a digital pioneer who co-founded the platform Blogger in the late 90s. He went on to co-found Twitter and lead the company as CEO. But the billionaire entrepreneur has since stepped down and turned his attention to Medium. That's an online publishing platform designed to showcase longer and more nuanced content. Williams told our Walter Isaacson that while Twitter needs to take responsibility for the quality of its content, it shouldn't risk losing its role as a place for the exchange of important ideas.
So you do Blogger, which gets everybody easily onto the internet with blog. Then you do Twitter, which becomes a great new form of social media. And you used to say it was to connect us. If you gave people a platform to connect us, it would make the world a better place. Did that work out?
I don't know if those are exactly my words, but that was part of the intention. I mean, when I got excited about the internet in the late 90s, to me, the exciting thing was exchanging ideas and knowledge with anyone in the world. And that still is the most exciting thing about the internet to me. And so I've basically spent my career building tools that help people share those ideas. And yeah, so it was Blogger, and then Twitter, we made it much, much easier. And we did have a belief and an ethos that more people sharing ideas and connecting means more better ideas succeed, we make better decisions, society is better. I would say part of that is true. I think we've seen a lot of evidence of that. I would say it turned out to be much more complicated as well.
Why?
We knew there were bad actors from the early days of the internet. There was spam, for instance, and there was misinformation. But the idea was the crowd would overwhelm the minority, and the crowd would be generally good, and there was value to debating things in public. I think the thing that was tricky is that a bad actor can overwhelm many, many good actors. The way these systems are designed, or have been designed. So that's.
Wait, tell me, the way they've been designed, do you think there's something inherent in the algorithm that incent people to
No, I think it's actually, a ton of it is just human nature. I mean, we react to fear and threat, and someone shouting fire in the theater, and that person can ruin the experience for everybody else. That part is just physics and human nature, and so that when you replicate that online and you give access to the whole world to ruin an experience for a group of other people, turns out there's enough bad actors in the whole world to wreak a lot of havoc.
The anonymity, by having that so embedded in the system of Twitter, did that help incent people to say things they wouldn't say face to face?
I think the focus on anonymity is a little overblown, actually. So if you look at, so Twitter is not by default anonymous. It's by default you put in your name. It's just that you're not forced to put in your name. And turns out there's a lot of really good reasons for that, because one of the things we learned even back in Blogger days was there are places where freedom of speech is not a right, and there are people who have things to say and they want to connect with fellow citizens, and if they do that in their name, they will go to jail. And so Twitter was used early on by people in oppressive regimes to connect, and so that's why it was always important to us not to do that. And most people use Twitter under their name. And most bad actors, people who are out there saying the worst stuff, I don't think the majority of them, I don't know the data on this, are saying it anonymously. They're happy to be assholes under their own name. I don't know if I can say assholes on here, but they're...
You can say it on Twitter, can't you? Or is it against the terms of service?
Yeah, but I don't...
No, but the ones that really driving the hate
I think it's a lack of
conversation.
consequences more than... So anonymity is related to a lack of consequences. The point is, even if you're saying it under your own name, there are very little consequences to being hateful online, and there are a lot of rewards depending on what community you're a part of. So that, I don't think that's the root of the problem.
What is the root?
Like the root of the problem, it's not an online thing. It's humans that can have trouble getting along.
Yeah, but we get along fine when we're together in at dinner.
Yes, in dinner when you say who can be at the dinner. I mean, if you invite just anyone to stop by a dinner and then you will probably still have better behavior than online. I think the fundamental thing is when people are pixels on a screen, there is something innate about us that causes us the way we've evolved isn't that, right? So there are certain people who see the other people online as people, and they feel an obligation to treat them as people, and there seem to be people who don't have that. I think that's part of the challenge of these systems in general, and if all the benefits that come with them come with that really big challenge.
Is there some way we should be making people responsible for what they say on Twitter?
Yeah, responsible. I don't know what that means for sure, but I think there should be, you shouldn't automatically have the ability to interrupt other conversations. And this is part of actually the protections that have been built into Twitter currently. But I think the whole idea of reputation is something that will come to the internet, and I think that's kind of important because that's how society works. Is you build a reputation, and if you insult someone, you're no longer invited to the party. That sort of thing.
But you're talking about the reputation of the user. You're talking about the user taking responsibility. Do you think that the platform should have some responsibility for what goes on now?
Absolutely, the platform has responsibility. I think everyone at Twitter would agree that Twitter has some responsibility. I think when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of what they should be doing and the service that Twitter provides to the world, which I do think is important in being this open and free platform where important ideas are exchanged and movements are created, you have to. It's very unclear to me, at least, and a lot of very smart people are thinking about this all the time, how to maintain that and to say, and everyone should be nice and there should be no abuse and there should be no, I think people are messy and society is messy, and we have to take some good with the bad and we have to keep trying to make it good. But even the extreme of well, just go on there and police it is just very naive and impractical. It's not a matter of, will they spend enough money? It's not doable in the case of Twitter to police Twitter to the degree that there's no bad behavior. And then it gets very nuanced to what is bad behavior. There are thousands of people and there's thousands of accounts that police the system right now. I think not everyone understands that.
You know, I asked my students at Tulane if you could invent a new form of media or social media that wouldn't have some of the problems of the old one. They say the same things you do, which is a place where people take responsibility, a place where there's some curation, a place where maybe you could build your reputation. And lo and behold, that's what you're doing in inventing Medium. So explain Medium to me.
So Medium is a place where anyone can write and publish, and articles is the main form that people publish on Medium. So anyone can go on there, and just hit write and write something, and tens of thousands of people do that every day. Most people just read, and so you can go on there and you can find articles and blog posts about every topic under the sun, I think almost literally, and you can say what you're interested in, and you can start to get personalized, and you can really go and learn about really anything from technical topics to politics to business to science. And there's both professional journalists on there who work full-time on Medium. There's independent writers, there's organizations, there's all types of people exchanging ideas and knowledge.
You base it not on advertising, but on subscription, and you actually pay people for the content.
Right.
This is like going back to the future. This is an old-fashioned concept, but it means you get high-value pieces.
Yeah.
Explain the theory.
Yeah, so the theory that is that advertising, especially advertising online, is the selling of attention. Almost all content on the internet is paid for by advertising. And the way these systems have evolved is the most attention for the least dollars is what advertisers buy for the most part. And so if you apply that, if you want to pay for the creation of something with advertising, the formula becomes, how little can I spend to get the most attention?
You make it clickbait. You make it cats dancing on a piano.
Yeah, and you make it, it goes back to yelling fire in the theater.
Right.
If you got paid for yelling fire in the theater,